I don't like horror games, not because I'm afraid of being scared, but because the overwhelming majority of horror games aren't scary.
Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest.
Modern horror tends to favor the same overused principles that I and many others have become desensitized to. But every so often, there comes a game that deviates from these common tropes, delivering an experience so uniquely terrifying that it doesn't just scare you, it stays with you. Labyrinth of the Demon King is among the most terrifying horror games that I have ever played, and I've played some pretty spooky stuff. It's a survival horror game from indie developer J.R. Hoodapole, and in its roughly 8-hour campaign, it managed to leave me disturbed, broken, and wanting more, all without ever using cheap jump scares. The horror in this game comes from the dreadful atmosphere it creates, and the twisted story it tells. It's insidious, it pulls, and it lingers long after the credits roll. The game opens with the player character waking up in a dilapidated dojo. If you couldn't already tell, Labyrinth of the Demon King is set in a nightmarish version of feudal Japan, and it is ripe with cultural references and folklore. Take for example this cat-like being that tried to harvest our flesh while we were unconscious. This creature is likely a Nekomata, a two-tailed cat yokai that craves human meat. The cat apologizes for her rude behavior, explaining that she thought we were dead, an honest mistake given the amount of blood we are leaking. It seems that prior to the game's opening, we suffered from a serious wound to the head. In any case, we pick up our katana off the floor and drink some sake to ease our pain. The cat then offers to give us a refresher in the basics of combat before sending us on our way, and luckily, some kind soul has volunteered to help us in this task. The combat in Labyrinth of the Demon King is slow, awkward, and basic, and all of this is intentional. Unlike most games, we aren't playing as some ultra-skilled warrior. We aren't even a samurai for that matter. We are just an ordinary foot soldier on a quest for vengeance. Almost every encounter feels like a life or death struggle. Each strike is a commitment, each parry a gamble. Combat here isn't about power fantasy, it's about survival. After familiarizing ourselves with the controls, we step beyond the creaking dojo walls into a land that feels like it's already taken its last breath. The world has entered the latter age of Dharma, a chilling concept rooted in Buddhist eschatology. This term, also known as Mappo in Japanese, refers to the final degenerate era of existence. It's a time where the Buddha's teachings have been distorted or forgotten, a time where the moral fabric of society has unraveled, blocking the path to enlightenment. Society is crumbling, war has spread throughout the country, disease and famine have killed thousands, and demons walk the very earth itself. Not as myths or metaphors, but as manifestations of karmic rot. You are an Ashigaru, a foot soldier in service of Lord Takeda Nobumitsu. Deceived by a powerful demon, your lord led his army into an ambush. All perished except for you. Against your wishes, your lord sacrificed his life to aid your escape from battle. While the name Takeda Nobumitsu is a fictional creation, the Takeda clan was indeed a real samurai clan that held great prominence during the feudal era of Japan. Similar to the events of the game, in reality, the Takeda clan suffered a crushing defeat in the 1575 Battle of Nagashino, which ultimately led to their destruction. As the sole survivor of your clan, you have now made a vow to track down the demon who betrayed your lord and end its life. Following rumors of an entrance to the demon's stronghold, you find yourself standing on a lonely road, deep in some long-forgotten forest. You take what could possibly be your final breaths on this mortal plane and prepare yourself to enter the Labyrinth of the Demon King. Now, just from this brief synopsis, you are probably thinking to yourself that the game's narrative seems pretty basic and cliched, your typical revenge story. But just hold on, Labyrinth of the Demon King may look straightforward on the surface, but that simplicity is actually a carefully constructed illusion. The story is deceptively deep and deeply symbolic, and by the time we reach the end, you'll surely be left scratching your head, rethinking everything you thought you understood. We awaken at a campsite perched just outside the entrance to the labyrinth. The atmosphere is still, almost unnaturally so, but if you're paying attention, you will notice something strange. Our katana, the same blade we wielded during the tutorial, is now broken. It's a small detail that's easy to overlook, but opens up two possible interpretations based on our knowledge at this very moment. One, something happened to the blade between the tutorial sequence and now, an event we haven't seen or perhaps forgotten. Or two, the tutorial sequence was not a beginning, but a flash forward, a scene from the future where our katana has already been repaired. Either way, the game is quietly telling you, time is not what it seems here. Following the path laid out before us, you'll notice something else. Banners, ones adorned with the symbol of a 16-petal chrysanthemum flower. This was and still is the imperial seal of Japan, meaning that the area we're about to enter is under the jurisdiction of the empire. Although, as we will soon see, their influence over the place is now nothing but a distant memory. Continuing forward into the jaws of the unknown, we enter a cave filled with numerous crumbling shrines, reinforcing the idea that this is a time where sacredness has been defiled. Further into the cave, the music fades, leaving us only with the sound of our footsteps and the eerie ambience that surrounds us. And then we hear it. A wet, grotesque tearing noise echoing off the cavern walls. Rounding the corner, we are greeted by a horrific sight. A long snake-like demon devouring the mutilated corpse of a soldier. It feeds on his flesh in the most disgusting way, reveling in its gluttony. But perhaps most unsettling of all, upon seeing us, the creature doesn't attack. It just takes note of our presence and then slithers back into the shadows. This monster seems to be based on the Nureonna, a river-dwelling yokai with the body of a snake and the head of a woman, although she is sometimes depicted lacking facial features similar to this game's version. The Nureonna is known to feed on humans and often acts as a guardian to sacred areas, although in this instance, the more appropriate word would be cursed. From the soldier's pool of blood, we recover the torch she was carrying and push on into the darkness. At this point, I want to highlight something that often goes unnoticed in games, but in Labyrinth of the Demon King, it's absolutely essential: the sound design. This game's audio is nothing short of psychological warfare. Its masterful blend of ambient noise and eerie atmospheric music creates tension like no other, and this cannot be overstated. Every distant creak, every screech, every reverberation, it all serves one purpose: to keep you on edge. Take this particular sequence for example. We are navigating through this pitch-black cave. We know a man-eating demon is lurking somewhere in the dark. We don't know where it went. We don't know if it's watching us. We just know it's still here. There's no scary music telling us we're in immediate danger. Just low, bone-deep percussion pulsing like a heartbeat. Every subtle sound effect makes you stop and turn around. Every shadow feels like a trap. Every step is a test of courage. This is the kind of tension that doesn't make you jump. It makes you sweat. And what makes it all worse, or rather better, is that nothing actually happens. There's no jump scare, no surprise attack. Instead, we simply spot a bucket suspended above a river in the distance and hastily climb up the rope it's attached to. If you're enjoying the video so far, help a struggling YouTuber out and subscribe. I have big, very big things planned for the future, and trust me, you don't want to miss out. We emerge from a well into what appears to be a castle courtyard, and although the ominous cave is behind us, the unease still lingers. The courtyard is desolate, decrepit, collapsing under time. It makes you wonder just how long the Demon King has ruled this place. Scattered throughout the castle is the emblem of the clan it belongs to, or at least formerly did. Its symbol is that of 3 swirling commas, also known as Mitsu Tomoe. This is the crest of the Kobayakawa clan, a clan infamously known for their betrayal during the Battle of Sekigahara in the year 1600, a treachery so monumental that it changed the course of Japanese history. It's no wonder why the Demon King chose their castle as his place of residence. As we venture further, we come across something unexpected, a woman kneeling before a shrine in prayer. In this blasphemous age, where faith has decayed and shrines are abandoned, her presence is jarring. But there's something even more obviously wrong. She appears human, but her body is in a state of decay, as if rot has taken root beneath her skin. Perhaps she is stricken with disease, or perhaps the Demon King's influence has warped her flesh as it has the world. What's most unsettling though is her face, or rather, her mask. A traditional Noh theater mask made for a woman, stained with blackened tears. The usage of Noh masks is a recurring theme throughout the game, and the more you see of it, the clearer the symbolism becomes. But even just as a horror device, the use of masks are highly effective. It hides the character's identity and emotions, tapping into that uncanny valley sensation. A blank face is more terrifying than a monstrous one, because it offers no clue as to what lies beneath. The woman identifies herself as one of the Demon King's servants, though it's clear from her demeanor that her servitude is not by choice. There's a wariness in her voice, as if centuries of decay have eroded whatever will she once had. She attempts to dissuade us from our mission, warning that many have come before, fueled by the same thirst for vengeance, only to fall before reaching their destination. But even in the face of near certain death, the Ashigaru's resolve does not falter. The woman recognizes this, and with hesitant sympathy, offers us some critical information. This castle contains 4 towers, 3 of which are guarded by a formidable warden, powerful nightmarish lieutenants who serve the Demon King. Only by defeating each warden and shouldering their burden can the door to the final tower be opened, and at its peak lies the Demon King himself. She also mentions another soul wandering the castle, a priest bearing the same mission as us. If we can find him, he may yet prove to be an ally. Before parting, the servant urges us to pray at the nearby shrine, cryptically remarking that it may one day save our life. In Labyrinth of the Demon King, shrines serve 3 main purposes. 1. They allow us to increase our health and stamina, a subtle metaphor for spiritual strengthening. 2. They let us manually save our progress. And 3. They act as respawn points, restoring us upon death. Mechanically, they function much like the bonfires in Dark Souls, but thematically they feel far more somber. Upon dying, the word revive appears twice on screen, not as an option, but as a command. It's as if we have not been granted the authority to die. After praying at the shrine, we gather ourselves and move forward to the first tower, the Tower of Repetition. Immediately upon entering, we briefly glimpse the priest the servant mentioned walking beyond a locked gate. The mechanism sealing the gate is strange, a circular structure with 4 empty sockets. Beneath it, an inscription reads, "When the 4 great kings sit upon their heavenly thrones, the path forward shall open." This is one of the many cryptic messages scattered throughout the labyrinth, riddles left behind by the Demon King, who seems to take perverse joy in watching others struggle. Following a massive trail of blood across the floor, we are treated to another of the game's haunting cutscenes. There's something so unnerving about Labyrinth of the Demon King's retro aesthetic. One might assume that horror becomes scarier the closer it is to reality, but in this case, the opposite holds true. The PS1 style visuals, with their low resolution textures and unnatural animations, create a constant sense of unease. The world feels off, like a half-remembered nightmare that your mind is desperately trying to complete. One of the game's most subtle yet striking features lies in the behavior of its enemies. Unlike most horror games, where enemies are unified by some hive mind hostility towards the player, here they're anarchic and blood-crazed. They don't cooperate, they don't organize, they just attack everything, including each other. These aren't loyal servants of the Demon King, they're tormented souls broken beyond reason. More specifically, former residents of the castle, corrupted by the Demon King's influence. Most of the enemies in the first tower appear eerily human-like, vague silhouettes, faceless and scarred. Their bodies are grotesquely emaciated, marked by what seems to be the remnants of torture. The further we delve into the labyrinth, the worse and more gruesome their condition becomes. And yet, despite their appearance, they're ferociously lethal. They lunge, move, and swing with the desperation of something that has nothing left to lose. The first few hours of Labyrinth of the Demon King are undoubtedly its most difficult. You're disorientated, under-equipped, and lost. Armed with nothing but a broken katana, you are forced to learn through pain and failure, and that's exactly the way it should be. On the corpse of the enemy whose skull got bashed in, we find a strange white gem, as well as a map of the first tower. The gem appears to slot perfectly into one of the 4 sockets on the sealed gate, but 3 more still need to be found. Despite acquiring a map, navigating the labyrinth doesn't become much easier, and frankly, that's by design. Labyrinth is truly a fitting description. The towers themselves feel like living mazes. I often found myself wandering in circles, unsure of my bearings, and yet, this confusion never felt like poor design. If anything, it perfectly fits the narrative. You are not a fearless adventurer, you're prey lost in someone else's domain. But when you do finally begin to understand the layout, you'll notice that beneath the chaos is surprisingly good level design. Each tower is constructed with interconnected parts, layered verticality, and cleverly placed shortcuts. Although this complexity does somewhat fade in the latter portions of the game. Descending into the kitchen of the first tower, we stumble upon a peculiar character, a man locked inside a pantry by that darn cat. Sounds familiar. He introduces himself as a blacksmith and offers his services in exchange for his freedom. To release him, we are told to find the mischievous feline last seen on the tower's 2nd floor. We find our furry friend happily procuring fresh meat to serve in her tea house. How delightful. Oddly enough, she doesn't seem to recognize us, but we'll get into that a bit later. The cat serves as the game's primary merchant, offering an expansive inventory of goods that make traversing the labyrinth significantly easier. And this brings me to my first real criticism of the game, the overabundance of resources. Even outside of the cat merchant's offerings, the world is teeming with supplies. Enemies frequently drop money or items, and levels are generously filled with resources. And while this may sound convenient, in a survival horror game, convenience is the enemy of tension. Scarcity is what breeds fear. When every healing item counts, when every consumable is a calculated risk, the player is forced to make meaningful decisions. Do I fight or do I run? Heal now or conserve for later? That pressure is the essence of survival horror. But in this game, I sadly did not feel that pressure. The fear of death is undermined when you know recovery is always within reach. This isn't game-breaking, but it does dilute what could have been an even more merciless experience. Inquiring about the pantry key, the cat casually explains that she locked the blacksmith away to turn him into ramen later. However, she's willing to part with the key if we bring her a Buddha statue. Conveniently, there's one in a crumbling old shrine downstairs. It doesn't look like anyone is using it, so we might as well take it, right? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? It's not like we're in the latter age of Dharma or anything. This is the Nuribotoke, a terrifyingly powerful yokai who serves as this game's stalker enemy. In typical fashion, he is unkillable, will relentlessly pursue you, and has a random chance of spawning every time you enter an area. Nuribotoke roughly translates to lacquered Buddha, which is quite fitting given his appearance. He is said to haunt those who defile Buddhist shrines, and won't stop until the wrongdoing is made right. Unfortunately, atonement isn't possible until much later in the game, so we will have to deal with his pestering for now. Mechanically, the Nuribotoke is quite slow and easy to avoid, but even so still does enough to keep you on edge. Personally, I would have liked him to move a bit faster or exhibit more erratic behavior, because as it stands, he's more of a nuisance than a menace. But that's just a nitpick on what's otherwise a good tension mechanic. Returning to the cat, we exchange the statue for the key and free the blacksmith. This small turtle-like creature is known as a kappa, a yokai most famously known for seeking out Chirikodama, a mythical organ said to reside in a person's anus. Yes, you heard that right. Japanese folklore is very strange. In any case, the blacksmith offers to provide his services in exchange for Shirikodama, should we happen to come across any. He also informs us that the cat merchant is in fact his wife. An unexpected revelation given her casual talk of turning him into broth. But, women, am I right? After freeing the kappa, we resume our blind navigation of the labyrinth, still uncertain of where exactly we need to go. Which brings me to another of the game's strengths. Labyrinth of the Demon King never holds your hand. There's no glowing yellow paint, no objective list. At most, NPCs provide vague cryptic hints, but nothing is ever explicitly stated. You're left to feel your way through the darkness, sometimes quite literally. This lack of guidance isn't a flaw, it's a design philosophy rooted in horror that many of my favorite games make use of. It makes you feel isolated and at times helpless. Your supposed allies are only able and willing to do so much to help. Ultimately, the burden of finding a way through this treacherous place is yours and yours alone. Down in the depths of the first tower, we find another gem for the locked gate, as well as our first proper weapon, a battered, rusty katana. It may not seem like much, but compared to our broken blade, it's a welcome upgrade. There are about 20 or so unique weapons in the game, ranging from heavy and slow two-handed weapons to lighter, more dexterous ones, as well as a few ranged options. While I wouldn't call the combat the main highlight of Labyrinth of the Demon King, it's clear that a good amount of thought went into giving players some variety. This helps keep the experience from going stale, and adds just enough depth to let you experiment with different playstyles. At this point, we can also visit the blacksmith that is forged to upgrade our equipment, and even fix our broken katana, though I would personally recommend waiting until you have better materials to do so. Returning to the first floor, we make use of some salt from the pantry to burn away this grotesque fleshy mass that's blocking our path. The tissue hisses and shrinks upon contact, granting us access to the castle's war room. Inside, we find a key to the tower's upper levels, along with a letter from the captain of the clan that previously occupied this fortress. He says that it's been a year since our character's clan fell, but our castle and land has yet to be claimed, for this clan's lord spends all his time in his chambers with that boy. It's a disturbing detail, but one that's also deeply relevant to the lore, so keep it in mind for later. On the previously inaccessible section of the second floor, we stumble upon one of the Demon King's cruel and sadistic puzzles. 5 masked people barely clinging to life hang from ropes attached to the ceiling. Each one stands precariously atop a narrow rotatable box, the only thing keeping them from being strangled. Etched onto a wooden board is an inscription that reads, 4 of this land stand before an old king, a boy and his mother, a farmer, and the son of a noble. The boy's eyes and mouth, black bloody pits. His mother speaks first. I was awoken this morn. I found my boy like this, bloodied and beaten, eyes and tongue shorn. I looked and found hair from a big black swine. It was the farmer. He stole from my boy so he could buy wine. The farmer cries out second. It surely was not me. I'll tell you what happened, and then you shall see. Our kingdom is ravaged, our coffers all reduced. Rumor has spread, the crone somehow found wealth. So I broke into their home to take some for myself. And there in the boy's room, who did I see? The noble lay with the boy, guilty is he. The noble was the third to chime in. Father, it's true, I lay with him, but his tongue and his eyes, those claims I despise. My sweet boy, I truly love he, but for all I tried, he would not love me. So I went to his mother and asked for her aid. Her help she did offer when a small sum was paid. At night I returned, and there I saw he, but his eyes had been taken, he could not see me. My love was robbed, that has been shown. But it was not I who did this, it was the crone. Forth the crone turns from them all, crying in shame. Lastly, the blind mute stands silent. With what has been stolen, he can't attest to the claims. 3 crimes had been wrought. The confessions laid out the thread. The king, angered by all, ordered them hung until dead. I don't know what's more disturbing about this situation. The fact that a mother would mutilate and sell her own child for wealth, or the fact that the king ordered the boy's execution along with everyone else, despite him clearly being a victim in all of this. As twisted as it is, solving this puzzle is necessary, as it rewards us with the 3rd gem for the locked gate. Only one remains now. On the tower's 3rd floor, we once again run into the cat merchant. She warns us that the castle has been corrupted by the Demon King's magic, warped in ways that go beyond the physical. Nothing is quite what it seems, and if we want to progress, it is in our best interest to examine everything carefully. This is another area where Labyrinth of the Demon King excels. Exploration feels rewarding. The game is full of hidden parts, cryptic bits of lore, and secret treasures waiting to be uncovered. The deeper you look, the more the world reveals. And even after finishing it, I'm almost certain I've only scratched the surface. In a room gently lit by candles, we come across an offering table dedicated to Jikokuten, the guardian of the East. Jikokuten is one of the 4 heavenly kings, powerful deities in Buddhist cosmology, who stand watch over the cardinal directions and defend the world from corruption and evil. Although, it doesn't seem like they're doing too great of a job at that. In Japanese tradition, Jikokuten is often depicted holding a biwa, a short-necked wooden lute, and by offering such a thing at the table, a concealed door opens. This passageway leads us to the very top of the tower, where we encounter the Demon King's first warden, an unsightly, sorrowful creature known as an Obume. An Obume is a yokai born from a woman who died during childbirth. She is both tethered to her maternal instincts and driven mad by grief, and this is excellently displayed in the fight. In the first phase, the Obume only attacks with one hand, shielding her baby with the other. She doesn't lash out recklessly, she's cautious and protective. But once her health drops low, everything changes. Desperation overtakes her. She screams in anguish and uses her own child as a weapon, swinging it at us in a horrifying display of insanity. It's one of the most unsettling boss fights I've seen in any horror game. After we defeat her, a rat-like yokai darts in from the shadows and snatches the baby away before we can even react. I still wonder what happened to that child, as this is the last we see of it in-game. From the Obume's corpse, we take on her burden, symbolized by a wooden coin carved with a red chrysanthemum. Not only is the chrysanthemum Japan's imperial flower, but it is also often used in funeral rites and memorials. The color red deepens the meaning, evoking feelings of intense love and sacrifice. This burden is likely one of grief and unresolved love. At the back of the boss room, we recover the final gem, as well as a cool set of samurai armor that we hastily adorn. Returning to the locked gate, we place all 4 gems in the slots and finally open it. Anytime now. Anytime. What the Of course, it wasn't going to be that easy. Each gem actually needs to be placed in a specific slot, the order of which we can find in the tower's lower level. The gems actually correspond to the primary color associated with each of the 4 heavenly kings. Tamonten stands in the north with his black armor. Komokuten waits in the west wearing his white robes. In the south stands Zochoten, his red aura burning bright. And in the east is Jikokuten playing his blue biwa. With the gate finally open, we leave the first tower behind and press forward with our journey. At this point, the game gives you the freedom to tackle the next 2 towers in whichever order you prefer. The difficulty is fairly balanced between them, so it is just a matter of preference. But before we subject ourselves to any more torment, it's a good idea to pay a visit to the cat merchant's tea house, which is accessible through a suspicious-looking hole in the center of the courtyard. Crawling through the tunnel, we are treated to an unexpected moment of serenity. The tea house serves as our one and only safe haven, a rare sanctuary in this otherwise merciless world. Here we can find both the cat and the blacksmith, as well as any other NPCs that we may encounter in the future. Interestingly, you'll notice that the dojo from the tutorial also appears in the background. It's inaccessible now, but its presence raises a curious question. Was the tutorial really a scene from the future as we suspected, or is there something more sinister going on? But setting those thoughts aside for now, the tea house's atmosphere really is excellent. It's in complete contrast to the rest of the game, and really makes you feel at ease, despite being in the domain of the Demon King. Even the simple action of making a cup of tea is surprisingly soothing, and as an added bonus, it also restores your health and grants you 3 additional healing items. At this point, it would be wise to reforge your katana if you haven't already done so, as the royal katana sold by the cat merchant contains the high-quality materials needed for a strong repair. And with that, our trusty blade is restored to its former glory, ready to take on the horrors of the next tower. The Tower of Lamentation once served as the castle's grand bathhouse, but whatever splendor it once held has long since rotted away. The walls are cracked, the floors are frail, and layers of filth cling to every surface. All this muck has attracted a revolting type of yokai, the Akaname. These bizarre gangly creatures lurk in bathrooms, using their long tongues to lick up grime and human waste. They are as unsettling as they are disgusting. Inspecting the map of the tower, you'll notice that several areas are highlighted in different colors. This ties into the tower's primary puzzle. In the water control room, you'll find contraptions designed to regulate the water in specific sections of the bathhouse. Each mechanism requires a color-coded gem wheel to activate, which correspond to the colored zones marked on the map. The catch is that only one area can be drained at a time, forcing you to choose your path carefully and backtrack strategically. The green wheel is already in place, and the yellow one can conveniently be found in the room adjacent. While exploring the second floor of the bathhouse, we suddenly hear a loud scream, followed by muffled sobbing. Following the source of the sound, we are led to a truly bizarre sight. An Akaname furiously licking a door like an ice cream on a hot summer's day.
That top note, that cream, pure vanilla.
Behind the door, we find a familiar face, the servant girl from earlier. Having heard we defeated the warden of the first tower, she now sees the potential in us and wishes to be of help. She gives us another gem wheel for the water control system before teleporting to the tea house. And yes, if you were wondering, she absolutely could have escaped this whole time, but apparently forgot the incantation out of fear.
What?
Back at the tea house, we're finally able to speak with the servant girl at length, and what she reveals is both repulsive and tragic. The Demon King, it turns out, has a ravenous appetite for the flesh of young women. He abducted this woman along with every other girl from her village and brought them here to serve as both slaves and eventual feast offerings. One by one, he would dine on them, sharing this horrific ritual with his monstrous guests. When it was her turn, he peeled a long strip of flesh from her back, but something about the taste stopped him. Her flesh was somehow different, unpalatable, and so he chose not to finish the meal. Instead, he condemned her to continued servitude, cooking, cleaning, and performing other duties which she refuses to even name. She's been trapped in this castle ever since, and no matter how many times she tries to escape, she always wakes up back here, as if the place itself refuses to let her go. Truly an abhorrent tale that emphasizes the sadistic nature of the Demon King. We've yet to meet the fiend in person, but between his cruel puzzles, endless torment, and ritualized cannibalism, he's already proven himself to be a being of unfathomable evil. Now determined to help us end this nightmare, the servant offers a small but meaningful favor. She can clean the filth of any weapon found in the bathhouse, enhancing its efficacy. However, she can only do this once, so choose wisely. To progress past this tower, we need to drain the pool on the second floor, but the control mechanism, the black wheel, has been broken into two pieces. The first half is tucked away on a shelf before the first floor shortcut, and the second can be found inside one of the flooded baths once you activate the green wheel. After combining the two fragments and repairing the wheel, we return to the water control room and drain the pool. Climbing through the now exposed drain pipe, we enter one of the tower's most freakish chambers, a hall of massive pulsating fleshy growths. And here, nestled among the filth, we meet the warden of this tower, a revolting blob of meat known as an upepo, a yokai of shapeless flesh, said to haunt abandoned spiritual places like temples and shrines. Its very presence is symbolic of decay and desecration. True to its form, the Nupepo is impervious to blunt weapons. Its flabby body absorbs any impact with ease. You'll need something sharp to cut through its mass. The fight itself is quite grueling. The Nupepo hits hard, constantly emits poisonous fumes, and can summon these centipede-like creatures to swarm and overwhelm you. However, if you happen to have a ranged weapon, the battle becomes far more manageable, as his sluggish movements make it easy to kite and attack from a distance. Upon defeating the warden, we're granted his burden, another wooden coin, this time bearing the image of a yellow shrine. This coin almost certainly symbolizes the loss of spirituality. The Nupepo is the physical embodiment of spiritual corruption, and in the context of the latter age of Dharma, this meaning is only amplified. That about wraps up the Tower of Lamentation. There are still a few other areas you can explore using the red and white wheels, but these just lead to extra items and gear. Right now you must be thinking to yourself, gosh, that felt way shorter than the first tower. And that's because it is. In fact, the Tower of Repetition is substantially longer than any other tower in the game, and I'm not sure if this was by design, but it does create a noticeable imbalance in pacing and makes the game feel front-loaded. In any case, this doesn't detract too much from the overall experience, as each tower is still unique and compelling in its own right. Our next destination is the ominously named Tower of Crushing Assembly, a structure that appears to have once served as a prison, or rather torture complex. The air here is thick with dread, and unlike the spiritual decay of the previous tower, this one reeks of violence and cruelty. The halls are now home to Gaikotsu, reanimated skeletal warriors, created from the remnants of those who died in this forsaken place. With no flesh or organs to cut, conventional slashing weapons are all but useless. The only way of dealing with these enemies is through heavy blunt weapons capable of crushing their bones. Inside one of the prison cells, we stumble upon a weathered notebook belonging to a monk sent by the shogunate to investigate the castle. He also wasn't the first. 5 so far have been sent to this province, but none have returned, and the reason why is now clear. According to the monk, the former lord of the castle succumbed to madness, imprisoning over 100 innocents in the depths of this dungeon. But the horror doesn't stop there. There were also rumors that the ruler laid with a demon, with the monk making specific note of an odd boy, one with a strange obsession for the place and a habit of muttering incantations under his breath. If you recall the note from the captain's log, this is now the second mention of a mysterious boy in the Lord's court. The implications are chillingly clear. This boy was almost certainly the Demon King in disguise, prior to claiming this castle as his own. And if that's true, then just what else is this monster capable of? As we travel deeper into the tower, we stumble upon a strange area referred to as the feeding grounds. The smell of rot permeates the air. The walls are caked in webs and filth, and every step forward feels like trespassing into a predator's lair. Then, without warning, it emerges, a monstrous spider-like abomination crawling out from its cave with an awful scratchy moan. This is the Tsuchigumo, a giant arachnid yokai that possesses the ability to shapeshift into humans, often luring victims to their doom. Its design is perhaps the most terrifying in the entire game. The upper half seems to be an armless human torso, while its lower is just this bloated mass of spider limbs combined with a gaping retractable mouth-like appendage that is just so disturbing on so many levels. The battle is just as nerve-wracking. The Tsuchigumo bombards you with these sticky web-based projectiles that drastically slow your movement, then immediately charges in with frightening speed. Getting caught in its webs often proves fatal, as its massive body makes strafing nearly impossible. Unless you're confident in your reflexes and close combat skills, ranged weapons are by far your best option here. After slaying the abominable creature, something unusual catches our eye, a male Nor mask, jutting out from one of the cocoons attached to the ceiling. With a swift cut, the cocoon splits open, revealing the priest the servant girl had spoken of. Like us, he too seeks to destroy the Demon King, but his mind has been fractured by the Demon King's pervasive corruption. His thoughts are muddled, and his will unstable. Though he cannot yet continue his mission, he places his trust in us, hoping that we can carry the torch until he regains clarity. The priest tells us that the warden of this tower is known as the jailer. Once the merciless keeper of these prison halls, the jailer has now devolved into something even more monstrous. And unlike the other wardens, he does not dwell in a fixed chamber. Instead, he must be lured out. Following his rescue, the priest relocates to the tea house, where he will sell talismans to aid you in battle. Although for a priest, his prices are borderline exorbitant. Ascending the stairwell from the feeding grounds, we come upon another cryptic inscription that reads, "When the 4 bells toll, the warden begins his act." An unsettling phrase that hints at something both theatrical and sinister. One can easily imagine these bells once ringing across the dungeon, heralding the start of one of the jailer's merciless performances. Although the jailer's body has since twisted into something monstrous, some memories of his previous self still linger. By recreating this dark ceremony and ringing all 4 bells, we will beckon him forth for one final act. But the bells cannot be rung with just any instrument. They require the warden's ceremonial mallet, and unfortunately, it's locked away in a chest high atop the tower. The key for some reason has been discarded into a hole so deep that it cannot be reached by normal means. To retrieve it, we must craft a makeshift grappling hook using a rusty meat hook and a rope salvaged from the body of a hanged prisoner. Can this game get any darker? Yes, viewer, yes it can. With the mallet in our possession, we can now perform the ritual to summon the jailer. But before that, there is actually a rare opportunity for atonement. In the upper recesses of the prison lies another Buddha statue, seemingly untouched by time. By offering this statue at the shrine we defiled in the first tower, we can finally appease the wrath of the Nuri Botoke, preventing him from pursuing us any further. Although at this point in the game, it doesn't make much of a difference, as we are very closely nearing the end. But I suppose if the Bloat Lord is giving you too much trouble, you may want to consider entering the Tower of Crushing Assembly second. With our debt settled and preparations complete, the ritual can now begin. One below where the rabble eat. one to the west where the women sleep, one in the east where the men are kept, and one up above where the actors wait. I am not exactly sure what type of yokai the jailer is, although he does somewhat resemble an emaciated and deformed blue oni. In Buddhist depictions, oni are typically seen as punishers and enforcers, demons that oversee suffering, which fits very well with the jailer's character. Mechanically, I very much enjoyed this fight, a bit on the easier side, but quite fun nonetheless. The jailer will attempt to skewer you with his spear, crush you with the body from one of his victims who is very much still alive, and spawn skeleton minions to create additional pressure. It's a fight that emphasizes chaos and control, fitting for a warden whose power once hinged on both. After besting him in combat, we take on the jailer's burden, the final burden. It is depicted by a crude drawing of a green knife. The knife is a primitive tool of violence. It's rudimentary, savage, and quite inefficient compared to other weapons of this age, which is likely symbolic of the jailer's sadism and personal appetite for harm. This burden is one of moral decay and cruelty. With 3 towers conquered and 3 wardens defeated, we are now in possession of all the burdens we require to enter the final tower and confront the Demon King. A weathered pedestal with 4 circular indentations stands before us. The inscription on it reads, "Shed yourself from your burdens, enlightenment shall follow." Now you may be wondering why there are 4 slots even though there were only 3 wardens. Well, interestingly enough, the player character was already in possession of a burden from the very start of the game. If that doesn't make you go, then I don't know what does. The Ashigaru's burden is represented by 3 blue arrows. As the sole survivor of our clan, we bear the torment of having lived while our comrades and master fell. The arrows likely represent the remnants of that battle, of the shame and hollow honor that remains. This burden is one of self-loathing and survivor's guilt. To face the Demon King, we must free ourselves of all the burdens we've carried on this harrowing journey. An Ubume's grief, an Upepo's spiritual loss, an Oni's cruelty, and an Ashigaru's guilt. A hidden door opens before us, leading us to the final tower, the Tower of No Interval. Immediately upon entering, a familiar bell tolls, and from the floor behind us, we see a face we thought we left behind slowly emerging. This genuinely shocked me, as I was certain that I had seen the last of the lacquered Buddha. But no, he's back for one last ride, and it's quite a long one. The Tower of No Interval is unlike anything we've seen so far. It's a single continuous ascent, a chase sequence that spans the entire tower. While part of me would have preferred a more traditional structure, something akin to the previous towers, I have to admit, this section surprisingly works, largely because it is such a stark break in convention. As the pursuit intensifies, so too does the music. The Nuribotoke grows faster, more aggressive, and the player starts to wonder, how long is the staircase? Is there even an end? Why is Pyrocynical a furry? The sequence goes on for about 3 minutes in total, and if its purpose was to instill both confusion and panic within the player, then it very much succeeded in that task. Upon reaching the tower's peak, the Nuribotoke abruptly halts his chase, and silence returns, allowing us to briefly catch our breath before reaching the climax.
What do you mean by that?
A menacing figure lurks in the corner of a dimly lit room. This is the creature who betrayed our lord. This is the evil we have come to slay. His form is unsettling. It's surprisingly human-like, albeit decayed and distorted. But most disturbing of all is the no mask he wears, the Hanya. The Hanya mask is perhaps the most iconic in all of Noh theater. It represents a human, typically a woman, who is transformed into a demon as a result of being consumed by dark emotions such as rage, jealousy, and despair. But why would the Demon King wear such a thing? Why would he adorn such a symbol? Well, we will soon find out. The Demon King addresses us with cold mockery, praising our efforts in the most condescending way possible. We are, according to him, the first in a very long time to make it this far. But he doesn't seem threatened. He seems entertained, perhaps even excited. The Demon King then delivers what is perhaps the most crucial 3 lines of dialogue in the entire game.
You still carry that blade, the other half still embedded in your master. Do you hope to cut me down with it a second time, or do you wish to submit and offer your body to me?
From this, we can draw 3 conclusions. Firstly, the reason why our blade was broken at the start of the game was because it was used to kill our lord, with half of it still being lodged into his corpse. Secondly, our character has already cut down the Demon King once before. And lastly, the Demon King desires our body, or just bodies in general. So, what does this all mean? Did we kill our own lord? How is the Demon King alive if we already cut him down? And for what purpose does he desire our body? Well, just hold on a bit longer, and I promise everything will make sense. After seeing the bloodlust in our eyes, the Demon King decides that the time for talk is over, and initiates our climatic battle. The fight is surprisingly easy. The mighty Demon King, the architect of our clan's demise. You would think he would put up more of a fight, but no, he doesn't. He strikes, he taunts, but he bleeds like any other. Blow by blow, we chip away at his decaying frame. It's easy, almost too easy. With one final attack, we sever the Demon King's head from his shoulders. And then suddenly, from the dark, it rises, his true form. The screen fades to black, and we awaken in a cave that seems oddly familiar. We instinctively begin following the river downstream, and as we do, fragments of our journey begin appearing along the path. It's almost as if our life is flashing before our eyes. As we continue forward, the cave grows brighter, and the screen begins to fade, not into darkness, but into white, the kind of white reserved for dreams, for death, or for something worse. And then we see it, lying motionless in the water, the Demon King's Hanya mask, the symbol of someone who has lost their humanity. So what the hell just happened? Did our character really just die? No, dear viewer, our fate is far worse than death. But before we unravel the true ending, we need to first understand what, and more importantly who, the Demon King really is. We now know that the form we faced in battle was merely a shell, a puppet. The Demon King's true self is actually this monstrous serpent-like creature that only reveals itself once its vessel is broken. The implications of this are both chilling and clear. Recall that the Demon King desires bodies, and recall that he was once described as a young boy. With this information in mind, we can confidently assume that he has the power to take over the bodies of others. The body that we encounter him in likely belonged to the previous lord of this castle that he was seducing. In light of this knowledge, we can now also imagine how our character cut the Demon King down once before, and how his blade ended up being embedded in his master. The Demon King likely deceived our lord and ended up taking over his body. Seeing this, we had no choice but to strike down our own master along with the Demon King. Now this is all well and good, but the real mystery has yet to be unraveled. Throughout the labyrinth, we can find various scrolls containing descriptions of the 8 great hells from Buddhist cosmology. These hells are described as realms of unimaginable torment, reserved for souls ensnared in the lowest depths of samsara, the endless cycle of death and rebirth. Each hell is more horrifying than the last, with names that echo like warnings. And here's where things get interesting. It just so happens that the names of 4 of these great hells correspond to the names of the 4 towers that we journey through during the course of the game. Namely, the Hell of Repetition, the Hell of Lamentation, the Hell of Crushing Assembly, And finally, the Hell of No Interval. So is this just a coincidence? Well, let's take a look at the scroll describing the Hell of Repetition, which we can find just before the final confrontation. A hell for those who have destroyed life in any form. The sinners here are full of rage and hatred. They seek each other out and tear each other apart using tooth and nail, pulling out eyes and ripping flesh until bone is exposed. Afterwards, the wardens of this hell come and use great iron rods to beat the sinners until they are nothing but piles of broken bones and mangled flesh. Thereafter, a chilling wind will blow through the realm, while a voice from the sky cries out, "Revive, revive," and the sinners will be restored to their former shape to begin the torture again. When I first read this, I literally sat in awe for a few minutes, trying to process what I just read. This is not just an arbitrary description of hell. This is exactly what we've been experiencing the entire game. Sinners full of rage and hatred locked in endless cycles of violence. Wardens sent down to punish the damned. A voice that commands us to revive upon dying. There's no way around it. All this time, we've been stuck in hell, serving out our sentence. It's not difficult to imagine why a foot soldier who has taken the lives of many would end up in hell. But just how did we get here in the first place? The game never mentioned anything about us dying in the mortal plane. Well, one must remember that we are living in the latter age of Dharma. The teachings of the Buddha have been long forgotten, and demons walk the earth itself. The barrier between realms is thin and on the verge of collapse. In such a world, you don't have to die to enter hell. Hell bleeds into reality, and those whose hearts are burdened with hatred and sin, like ours, naturally find their way in. This is why we can see both aspects of the human realm and hell in-game. Reality itself has become distorted. But even so, how did our character not realize what was going on this whole time? That seems a bit odd. Well, it likely has to do with the Demon King's magic. We know from the priest that he has the power to influence and distort people's minds. So who's to say he did not do this to us? In fact, there's compelling evidence to suggest that this is not our first cycle through the labyrinth. Think back to the opening sequence. We awaken from a grievous wound. The cat merchant casually tells us that we can return to the labyrinth, almost as if we've done this before. The layout, the dialogue, it doesn't feel like a beginning. It feels like a continuation. Just outside the dojo, there is also a strange silhouette of a body hanging limply from a tree. This could very well be the remains of the Ashigaru from a previous cycle, one in which we were unable to accept the truth of our reality. Most compelling of all is the corpse devoured by the Nureona. If you look closely at its chest plate, you'll notice the distinct armor of a Takeda foot soldier, the same clan to which we belong. And since the game explicitly states that we are the last surviving member, this can only mean one thing: the body being consumed is our own. It's horrifying to consider how long we've truly been trapped here, how many times we've sought revenge, only to die before reaching our goal and begin again, lost in an endless cycle. One thing that I cannot get over, one detail that continues to gnaw at me, is why our character starts the game with a burden, something that is otherwise exclusive to the Demon King's wardens, manifestations of the sins that bound them to hell. And yet we, the supposed Ashigaru, a nameless foot soldier, begin with one already etched into our soul. We only encountered 4 of the Great Hells in the game, so I suppose it's possible that we killed another warden prior to the start of the game. But this is highly unlikely, as the symbolic meaning of the burden we carry is deeply tied to our character. This only leaves us with one other conclusion, that our character was once a warden of the Demon King, one who somehow regained a sliver of his former self, enough to rebel and fight back. This theory would also explain how we, a mere foot soldier, were able to defeat beings that were once the Demon King's chosen champions, and go toe-to-toe with the big boss himself. Of course, this is all just speculation on my part. And now, we arrive at the final piece of this puzzle, the ending. After beheading the Demon King, we glimpse the truth, that his true form is this twisted serpentine monstrosity, and what we fought is merely a puppet. This is precisely why the Hanya mask was included in his design, for it is not the Demon King that wears the mask. It's his host, the person who once lived in that body, a soul consumed by darkness and transformed into a monster. The Hanya mask is a symbol, one that hides the Demon King's true identity. The Demon King in this game is almost certainly based on the celestial Ashura King, Mara, the supreme personification of all forces that oppose enlightenment, the one who tried to stop the Buddha himself from achieving nirvana. Mara is solely fixated on preventing beings from escaping samsara, for this is where he thrives, and nowhere is his influence stronger than in the 8 great hells. If this theory holds true, then it means that this entire time we have been dancing in the palm of the Demon King's hand. For you see, in Buddhism, hell is not eternal. It is a realm of immense suffering, yes, but it's not necessarily forever. When one has repaid their karmic debt, they are given a chance to rise again, to be reborn into another realm. But if that debt remains, if the roots of suffering still fester within, then the soul remains bound, cycling through anguish without end. And this brings us to the bitter truth of our journey. All this time, our character has been driven by a single unrelenting purpose: vengeance. From our very first moments in the Labyrinth, we slaughtered anything and everything in our path, indiscriminately, without hesitation, and without mercy. We never questioned it, we just kept going, as if carving through flesh could somehow carve us a way out. Even the Demon King saw it. Just before our final confrontation, he noted it plainly, the violence in our eyes. He recognized the hatred, and that, in Buddhist terms, is dosa, one of the 3 poisons, the roots of suffering that bind all beings to the wheel of samsara. Now, ask yourself, viewer, do you really think we shed those burdens? Do you really think that the simple act of discarding some wooden coins is enough to change who you are? Remember who it was that left that inscription, who it was that told us this would lead to liberation. It was none other than the Demon King himself, the one figure in the entire game whose sole purpose is to ensure we never attain enlightenment. So while we may have symbolically cast off our burdens, it is abundantly clear that nothing essential inside of us changed. We were still filled with hatred to the very end, and this is exactly what the Demon King desired. So was it all a lie? Was our entire rageful journey all for naught? Well, it's beginning to seem that way, because here's another truth that was overlooked. Within the realm of Buddhist teachings, achieving liberation from within hell itself is almost impossible, because the clarity, mindfulness, and transformation needed are almost entirely out of reach in such a state. One must be reborn as a human, as a being with the capacity to change, before they can even begin to walk the path to nirvana. So what's the deal? Is the Demon King really just that much of an evil prick, that he'd go this far just to keep us trapped in hell? Just to torment and humiliate us? Well, that's certainly one of the reasons. But there also may be another, one that is far more sinister. Notice that despite our strong desire to kill him, the Demon King never went out of his way to stop us. On the contrary, he was doing the exact opposite. He was guiding us. All those notes and instructions disguised as riddles were actually allowing us to progress and get closer to him. If he truly wanted to keep us away, he wouldn't have said anything at all. But then why not remove all obstacles or seek us out himself? Well, he needed to be certain that we are worthy of becoming his vessel. The Demon King doesn't just kill his enemies, he uses them. Our lord, the ruler of this castle, even the young boy mentioned in the logs, all were vessels, tools he inhabited and then discarded when they no longer served him. And now, after watching us carve through 3 towers and 3 wardens, he sees what he's been looking for: a new host, a body strong enough to contain him, a soul broken enough to accept him. Look closely during the final battle. The arena we are in isn't just a room, it's a Nord theater stage. This is an absolute masterstroke in symbolic design, for our battle with the Demon King was not a fight, it was a performance, one that was perfectly choreographed to end exactly the way he intended. The sequence following the Demon King's final strike is almost certainly symbolic, as we wake up in a completely different area that is not accessible from his arena. Furthermore, as we follow the river downstream, we pass by remnants from our journey, objects we encountered in the towers, now scattered like fragments of a fading memory. And finally, just before the screen fades to white, we see it, the Hanya mask, lying on the ground, waiting for us to put it on. This is our punishment, the ultimate punishment. We are to be inhabited by evil itself. We will suffer as his plaything until someone else takes our place, or until our karmic debt is finally repaid, if that's even possible anymore. The greatest trick the Demon King pulled on us was not any of his puzzles, riddles, or illusions. It was making us believe that our vengeance was liberation. In doing so, we became just another actor in the Demon King's play. Wow, that got very dark very quickly. Let's try and end things on a lighter note. I think Labyrinth of the Demon King is exceptional. Its atmosphere, lore, and gameplay all come together to create a truly unforgettable horror experience. For a developer to create a game of this depth and quality on his first attempt is truly remarkable. So, Mr. J.R. Hoodapole, I applaud you. As for you, dear viewer, do yourself a favor and check out this game for yourself. There is a good amount of content I did not cover in this video, and multiple updates are already on the way. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go drink a nice warm cup of matcha and pretend I'm not trapped in Buddhist hell.